Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. These podcasts are brought to you in part by our sponsors, who really truly are what make these podcasts possible every week. O'Fallon Nutrition is a company that I've worked with for over 15 years. They're independently owned and operated, located here in O'Fallon, Missouri, right off of Highway K and Mexico Road. I call this place the Whole Foods of St. Charles County, but even if you are not located on this side of the river, it is still worth the drive. I can remember working all the way down at Powerhouse and still sending people out to O'Fallon Nutrition for their supplements. They are more than a supplement company. You can get grass-fed beef, salad dressing, seasoning for your cooking, hair care products, makeup, deodorant, toothpaste, essential oils, and all the vitamins and minerals that you can think of. If you're looking for clean, whole food nutrition, as well as home care, house care, skincare products, O'Fallon Nutrition is your place. You can take a look at them at o'fallonnutrition.com, or if you'd like to have something shipped, if you're listening to me from outside of St. Louis, you can certainly have items shipped. I know they do free shipping if it's an order over $50, and the phone number is 636-240-5283. Again, it's o'fallonnutrition.com. As well as if preparing your food on a weekly basis is your primary excuse for why you're not able to stay on a good, clean eating program, which is something that I hear very regularly from my clients, I would ask you to please take the time to check out Pure Plates. It's pureplatesstl.com. They are a phenomenal place. We get our food from there during the week. They deliver to our Integrity location. They will deliver to your house. They also are just available for pickup. You can go to their Chesterfield location or their Kirkwood location and just pick up meals for the day, as well as just having them delivered right to your door. So if preparing your food is your main excuse for why you cannot stay on a healthy eating program, then I would suggest just stop by Pure Plates. Just try it. If you're trying to lower your blood pressure, you're trying to lower your cholesterol, you're trying to get your blood sugar down, try to do Pure Plates meals for a week and just see how different you feel. These are organic meals. They are gluten-free. If you need them to be, they can be dairy-free. They are soy-free. You're not taking any processed sugars or meat curing agents or preservatives. They really, truly believe in nutrient-dense meals that are just whole food nutrition. And I've had my clients, or I've made recommendations for my clients for years at Pure Plates. It's pureplatesstl.com, or you can call them to ask questions at 636-778-3555. Again, remembering that they have a location in Chesterfield as well as in Kirkwood that you can just run by and pick up a meal today. Everyone always asks me where I get my meat from, and given that I really eat meat on a daily basis, typically beef primarily, my meat is very important to me. I have an autoimmune condition and I want grain-free, corn-free meat, and I just haven't found the confidence in stores in knowing that I'm getting 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And I have searched and searched and searched for the right farm, and I have found the farm. It's fedfromthefarm.com, fed, F-E-D, from thefarm.com. These farmers are amazing. It's a family. They're here in Missouri, and they have the desire, just like I do, to see people well and to see people healthy, and they put a lot into what they do. It's such a wonderful family to support. They do offer 100% grass-finished, grass-fed, meaning that's it. A beef, and I get my ribeyes, I get my ground beef, my ground sirloin, I get my chuck roast. I mean, they basically have everything. They even have awesome jerky, but they also have eggs, they have chickens, and they have turkey. I'm planning on getting a turkey for Thanksgiving, and if you'd like lamb, they have that as well. But if you are in need of good quality grass-fed, grass-finished beef, or quality eggs, chicken, turkey, don't just settle for what you're getting at the local store. to go out on the internet and check out Fed from the Farm. That you can arrange a pickup or you can have it delivered to your home. And I can guarantee you're going to taste the difference. For me, my health actually depends on it. So I really thank God to have found such a great farmer. Fedfromthefarm.com. I hope it blesses you.
Welcome to Faith, Fuel, and Fitness, the Integrity Way, with your hosts, John and Debbie Morris from Integrity Training Systems.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. John and Debbie Morris here. It is week 2 of our future with our friend Dr. Joe Moleski here. You know, start of a great thing. Thanks for coming, Joe.
Happy to be here.
As I stated, this is our future starting here. You know, Integrity Health Systems is a branch of Integrity Training Systems. We're doing some pretty awesome things. If you happened to hear us last week, you kind of know what that looks like. We're starting with introducing some different programs with Dr. Joe and his assistants and us just making people healthy. You know, and last week we talked a lot about blood sugar. We talked about blood glucose and the monitors, which we'll get into a little bit later, a couple segments from now. Debbie and I are both wearing those. I had to inform my masseuse today that I had one on, and she, didn't skip a beat because I told her I can do jujitsu with this. You're not going to rip it off. I'm glad she didn't challenge it, but yeah, it worked right through that. So, Dr. Joe, I want to just approach a couple topics. You know, we talked about the blood glucose. You were mentioning to me that, the demon here is actually the fructose, and that we don't really have a monitor for that. So let's talk a little bit about what that means.
Yes. So fructose is part of what we call table sugar. You have glucose and fructose make table sugar, and we have glucose monitors and whatnot, and I've heard of patients monitoring their blood sugar that are diabetics, but fructose you don't hear much about. And one of the reasons you don't is we don't have a monitor. We don't have we can't even check your blood for it like a simple diabetic does on a daily basis. We don't have anything to check it. It would be really nice if we did, but fructose is definitely the demon. So I just want to get into why fructose is so bad. So when you eat, let's say, a sugar cube, part of it is going to go through, your body's going to break down and break it down to glucose, and then that other part is fructose. So the fructose, it goes into your liver, and your liver starts processing it. There's an enzyme called fructokinase, and this enzyme is essentially it's the workhorse to break down fructose in your body. So what happens is your body then takes all the ATP. ATP is essentially the currency for energy in your body, and it just shuttles it right to this enzyme, because if you have all this sugar and all this fructose it needs to break down, the enzyme needs to start chewing away at it. And so that actually rapidly depletes all of your ATP, which is your energy, to let's say fund this enzyme to break down fructose. And then what happens is a byproduct of this breakdown of fructose is it robs your energy, and secondly, it produces uric acid. Uric acid is produced, and this is you hear uric acid patients have gout flares or whatnot, but uric acid does much more than that. So uric acid then goes to your mitochondria, and your mitochondria are your powerhouses of the cell, your energizer bunnies. The reason you have energy is because of these little organelles, which are called mitochondria. So what happens is the uric acid then irritates the mitochondria, and then the mitochondria can't produce energy anymore. So it's almost like this vicious cycle. You eat sugar because maybe you're tired, or right. You're definitely having some issues with energy, and then you have that donut in the morning, and then what happens is the fructose, then it's robbing all of your ATP from your mitochondria, sucking all the life out of your cells, and then what happens is a byproduct of the breakdown of that sugar that you just did, then the ability to make energy, it disrupts that. So you got on both ways, you're sucking energy and you can't make any more energy. And so then you become fatigued that 2 hours after you eat a Krispy Kreme donut or whatever it may be. And so this vicious cycle leads into added stress, added fatigue to your cells, and actually it results in essentially causing you to just have cravings throughout the day.
Right, and I think that's the thing that people, like we said last week, we want people to understand when you're down on yourself saying, why do I keep going back to this stuff, or why can't I break this cycle, or I just need to get over it. You know, you may be dealing with an actual chemical issue here that someone else is telling you just get over it because they've got it figured out. They don't understand.
Or truly a physiological response. It's
correct.
An actual imbalance that has been created.
It's more
by this disruption of the bad food that you're having, of course.
Right, it's more than making the decision.
Yes, it's more than it being mental. A lot of people will tell me, oh, I truly just think it's mental. I'll say something like, I think we need to get you to your doctor. I think we need to have this looked at or this looked at. And they'll say, no, I really just think it's mental. I'm like, sure, it might be mental at this point because I truly think it has actually caused an imbalance in your neurotransmitters as well. But I'm just letting you know that it isn't just you being mentally weak.
And
like
this
it's
is
an
where,
actual physiological issue.
This is where I end up on a soapbox, and you know, I'll die on this hill. Is sugar, the fructose? This is the worst drug in our world. Okay, and I'm speaking as an addict here. Now, I've never done heroin. I've never done cocaine. Like, I know people have a deeper story than even me, but I have been a part of alcoholism. I've had pain pills that I've been addicted to. I've had anxiety medication I've been addicted to. And I'm not talking about taking my prescription amount. I'm talking about way above and beyond numbers that doctors hear and they're like, how are you still alive? And I've quit all of those. This cycle, the sugar cycle, is the only one that perpetually comes back to me. Yeah. It's the only one I fall back on. And when people say like, oh, you know, you hear this, Deb, you'll hear people say, they're like, oh, well, I think it's just mental. I'll be able to overcome it. I'll be able to overcome it. It's the same thing that any drug addict is going to tell you about their drug. It's the first step if you go to an anonymous group is admittance. People don't want to admit that they're stuck in this cycle of food, and they don't realize that it is physiological. It's more than just thinking it.
I truly feel like, and I was listening to a message the other day where someone was saying, you know, don't let someone tell you that you cannot have an off meal. Don't let someone tell you that you cannot enjoy that amazing food that you love. Yeah. You can still lose weight and be healthy and create balance. You want balance, so you want to be able to have those off meals. And I was just thinking to myself, that person, number one, has never had a health issue the way I have.
Bingo.
Because there's no way that they could tell that person it was okay to eat those foods. And B, poison in moderation is still poison, okay? Everything Dr. Joe just said tells you why that minute amount that you're going to have that you think is no big deal is actually a way bigger deal than what you think it is. So when you have a health issue and you're trying to dive in and get better and you're meeting with someone and they give you a plan, but they tell you to follow it for 6 days and on the 7th day you can just jump off a cliff and have anything you want, you're not improving your health.
I want to mention something here, and if you're under 30, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to have a clue what I'm talking about. But you guys have all seen The Princess Bride, right? Okay, poison is still poison. The Princess Bride, the main character, ends up in a place where he has to have a battle of wits to determine which cup has poison in it. He drinks the one that has the poison in it, as well as his adversary. His adversary dies on the spot. He's completely fine. Here's my point. If you're listening to someone on Instagram or Facebook or any of these social media platforms that's telling you, hey, look at me, I look fantastic and I have this, and I'm telling you, you shouldn't let anybody tell you this. First off, they may have the ability to consume the poison in a way that you don't. Second off, they might be full of crap. Right. They may be walking around not feeling good, and you're just looking at their abs, thinking, "Oh, well, they've got abs, and they're saying that they can do it." Now, I'm going to tell you right now, they smile for the camera, and you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So you really got to pay attention to the science. Yeah. The problem is, people want to be told it's okay to have what you want once a week, or twice a week, or once a month.
Yeah. And one of the things I will say is, you know, take a look at the nutrition facts on back of labels. Ketchup. 4 to 6 grams of sugar. Now you might say, oh, 4 to 6 grams, that's not a lot. So 4 grams of sugar will spike your blood sugar to 80. You have about 1.5 gallons of blood, and if you take a tablespoon of sugar, which is about 4 grams, and dump it in that 1.5 gallons of blood, your blood sugar go to 80. So ketchup, a little ketchup on your fries. Come on, no, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal, and I think it starts early on when we're young,
right,
we develop this addiction,
yes,
and then into our 30s, 40s, we don't understand. Like Debbie just said, is it in my head? Yes, it is. It's an addiction that's been rooted early on in your childhood because of the food industry. They're putting in sugar in everything. Take just one day, take a look at how to avoid sugar. It's very difficult unless you're cooking and you're eating whole foods and you're really paying attention to things. So it doesn't take a lot.
And then at the school, you would have someone say that you're actually going to cause an eating disorder in your child because you're not allowing them to have the ketchup.
I think it's important to note here that part of when I talk about addictions that I've broke and the one that I haven't is probably based in what you just said, Dr. Joe. It's like I didn't start painkillers until I hurt my back. That was 2006. I didn't start medication for my mind until 2009. So I broke those. The food. I've been doing this fructose thing since I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, right. So you're trying to overcome something. That's where we go to the school and say, no, you're actually creating the imbalance by letting them have it and telling them that it's okay.
I love the argument. Oh, well, are you sure that half the time they should have it, half the time they shouldn't? Isn't that going to create a problem? Yeah, you're darn right it's going to create a problem. They need to full-time not have it.
Right, exactly. For more information on a program with us at Integrity Health Systems, just to get your glucose monitored, to work with a health coach and be told exactly what to eat, you can take a look at us at integritytrainingsystems.com, or you can call us at 636-299-2208.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. John and Debbie Morris in studio today with Dr. Joe here. We were talking a lot in this last segment about fructose. We were talking about the effects that it has on the body. And while we went to break, Dr. Joe started to talk to us a little bit about a study that he had seen some months. Why don't you just let everybody know what we were talking about here?
So this goes into how glucose affects the brain. There was a Harvard psychiatrist that has been using diet to actually correct certain mental disorders, like, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar. And one of the things that he mentioned in this study that, you have, school-age children that are, fed these high, sugary drinks and food and processed food at their cafeterias or whatnot. And, there's food marketing out there that, hey, have this popsicle, have this ice cream. And they're constantly just fed this, barrage of, high sugar content food items. And so one of the study kind of goes into school-age children that were below the age of 9. They would come home, they would eat a sugary meal, and over time, developed insulin resistance. They developed fatty liver disease, and the study looked at children that were under the age of 9. If they developed insulin resistance before the age of 9, they were 5 times, so that's 500 times, 5 times likely to develop schizophrenia or bipolar by the age of 24. So developing insulin resistance at a young age, that predisposes you for, later on in life into your early 20s and 30s, that you're going to have possibly developed schizophrenia or bipolar. And the study also showed that they're saying that insulin resistance is possibly a precursor to these psychiatric disorders, which is pretty powerful, that your diet can cause a mental disability.
I mean, and it's no secret that I deal with psychiatric issues, and it's fascinating that you're saying this because I've also had brain trauma, and I actually spoke to my psychiatrist today. I've had 11 charted concussions, so who knows how many I've actually had, right? They usually say for every one there's 2. And she mentioned today, we were just talking about sugars and energy drinks and caffeine and things, and she was basically just straight up, she said, hey, listen, you've had brain trauma, and things that you're going to see be okay for someone else and it seems like nothing is really just not going to be okay for you. And I think that's, to your point, kind of what you're talking about is we're creating a situation. And I listen to parents say, oh, well, I did that growing up, or oh, I didn't have a problem with that. Well, things are different now. Things are being made differently. They're being processed differently. Ingredients are different now. And to take it back to what you're saying behaviorally, I remember remember growing up, and this is nobody's fault. This is the world we grew up in. You have a bad day, okay, well, you get an ice cream. You know, you need to be rewarded for something you did so good. Okay, you can have some candy. You know, sugar has constantly been there for us as a society when we're down and also when we're up, and we deserve a reward. So if it's there when you're down and it's there when you're up, how frequently are you really just somewhere in between? It's always going to be there.
Now, I worked with a client, and this has actually happened to me twice. You figure in about 23 years, I've only done this twice, but I've worked with 2 clients with schizophrenia, and both of them, it was a tremendous event to even get them into my office. They didn't leave the house ever.
Right.
And so their parents brought them in, and these are like grown adults. And both of them ended up with full-time jobs.
Yep.
After changing their food. They didn't change their medication. In fact, the psychiatrist had to change the medications,
right? They come off of them.
Because as the food started to change things, they had to reassess the level of certain medications. And the reality is, one of them, he was doing 3 Red Bulls a day, okay? And then he was just doing sugar. I mean, just sugar and bread and sugar and bread. And I mean, his mom was at a loss.
Right. I mean, and if your child has that issue, you just want to help. You want to give them what they want. And so you don't understand that what they want is not what they need. And Dr. Joe said this last week, you know, fructose is a drug. So when you think about it, these people, us as a society, we're already giving ourselves drugs. So if you're talking about a psychiatric disorder, myself specifically, I have bipolarism that has developed. That's kind of what we're thinking I deal with. I have chronic anxiety and manic depression moments that I swing between. If my food is clean, I have a baseline from which I can medicate myself. If it is not, I'm giving myself medication. I'm taking that as a medicine. If I take an energy drink, think about it. Why are you taking it? You're looking to correct something. Your energy's low, you're depressed, you don't want to get out of bed. Hey, an energy drink will help me. It's a pill. It's just a different way of medicating.
Right, and then taking L-tyrosine, L-tryptophan, phenylalanine.
And if you're sitting here
3 times a day,
if you're sitting here saying, I don't know what the words that Debbie just said are, that's what's in your energy drinks.
Right, and the caffeine. So at the end of the day, just removing the Red Bulls was a significant change in that person's life. But then we actually had to sort of counter that effect with different foods, knowing that there was going to be this impact on the brain from not having it. So then what I did was I just adjusted the fat intake and tried to feed the brain a little excess fat. But what I really want to talk about is how that changed things sort of for managing their blood sugar. And the next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about leptin. So when I added more fat, we started to change the hunger response, and we started to calm down some of those blood sugar responses. And then all of a sudden, we just started to create a balance, because we were no longer imbalanced. And he could wake up and say, I'm okay to eat eggs right now. I can just eat eggs. I don't have to have bread with jam, with a Red Bull. I can just eat eggs, and those eggs are going to fuel me and they're going to sustain me. Whereas before, it was like, no, I have to have the jam and I have to have the bread, and then 30 minutes later, an hour later, I need more of something else because I don't feel full. Where the eggs actually got to a place we were able to scratch the surface enough and get in there and truly make those eggs feel like they were filling him. And so definitely next segment, I want to kind of go into the leptin response, just understanding leptin resistance and how people become, basically obese, and they can't make changes, and they're fighting for it.
I think that's really important to talk about that too, because I have clients even that will come in, and before they work with Debbie on nutrition, they're just training, and they're like, I don't even eat anything, and I can't lose weight. I barely even eat, and I need to drop 200 pounds. I mean, this is what we're talking about.
I believe them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I mean, Dr. Joe not being included, but a lot of times that type of patient will go to a doctor and I will send them and I will say, you need to tell them this, this, and this. I almost want to go with them because the doctor to some extent is like, no. You're overeating. You know, you're not watching your calories. You're not doing this, but they're not. I've witnessed it. I've watched them try time and time again, and their body's not responding. And I watch them just deflate and almost want to give up, basically. Right. That's what we do. That's why we're partnering with Dr. Joe. We're sick and tired of people feeling sick and tired, and we're ready to give another option and to just give an alternative to be able to have a better life. For more information on Integrity Health Systems, you can call us at 636-299-2208, or you can take a look at us at integritytrainingsystems.com.
Welcome back, everybody. John and Debbie Morris in studio today with Dr. Joe, talking a lot about fructose, a lot about blood glucose. And while we were on break, we started to talk about leptin and the effects that it has on the body. I think this is something that's not talked about near enough in the health community or the medical community. So, Dr. Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So leptin is a hormone that is very important. So the reason it's so important is I like to describe it as the body's thermostat to the brain to kind of tell the body, okay, I have enough fat stores or I don't have enough fat stores, and I need to eat more or eat less. So that's kind of what it does. So leptin is a hormone that's secreted by your fat cells, and essentially its target is inside the hypothalamus in the brain, and essentially what it triggers is for you to be full, so satiety. So when your body has lots of fat reserves, fat stores, then it tells the brain, hey, I don't need to eat as much. I get fuller quicker, and it kind of calms that hunger. Now, the other aspect is, okay, if you don't have enough fat stores, it's the opposite. It's going to make sure that you continue to put on weight. Now, the reason when this becomes a problem is you get insulin resistance, and then that leads into leptin resistance. So imagine if your body did not have that thermostat. So imagine if your body was, putting on the pounds, and it had a disconnect in telling the brain, hey, you need to stop eating. So imagine just that's cut off, and so you have lots of fat stores, but because you have leptin resistance, you're not turning off that dial, and you're going to keep eating, and so that's a big problem for obese individuals, because they don't have that stop. They don't have that regulatory pattern to where, hey, I need to stop eating. And so this vicious cycle that I spoke about in the first segment is you have this sugar that's coming in, it's depleting your energy stores because it needs to fund this enzyme called fructokinase, and then it breaks down the fructose, it leads into uric acid, and it poisons your energy cells, which are the mitochondria. And then after that, it creates the uric acid there also affects how you burn fat. So you're robbed of your energy, and then it also impedes the ability for you to burn fat. And then in your brain, it tells you, hey, you got, I don't know whether you have fat or not, so I'm just going to tell you to keep eating. So this cascade of first sugar ingestion of sugar to energy depletion to you can't burn the fat, and by the way, now I'm going to confuse you. You don't even know if you have. You essentially are not going to have the ability to control how much you eat. So how about that? And so that's why we talk about the fructose being the demon, because you have this terrible vicious cycle, and it's something that we need to talk about.
I definitely have experienced this, and in the past I know I have talked about when my immune system was really under attack. I had to really go into a pretty strict ketogenic state where I remained in ketosis for quite a while, and it was a game changer for me. It truly helped me to be able to heal my immune system and just calm it down so I wasn't constantly under attack. But the reality is I have experienced this firsthand because I was a bodybuilder for years and I competed. And, I had a coach, and I love my coach. He did a wonderful job with me. I have no issues with him, but he just gave me the typical diet. I did, the eggs, and then I did oatmeal, and I did chicken, and I did sweet potato, and I did brown rice. I just did the typical bodybuilder's diet. I was starving all the time.
Right.
And I don't want you to think, oh, yes, she was a little. No, I was ravenous hungry. I mean it, an hour after I'd eat, and then I'd have to do an hour's worth of cardio and then an hour and a half's worth of weight training. I'm just telling you, I was just always hungry. And on a ketogenic diet, what was just so interesting is like, at the end of the day, we all think we can eat a 28-ounce steak, and I know my husband probably can.
That's right.
But you wouldn't necessarily go for another one. Okay, there's a point in time, even at about 16 ounces, where your body's like, you're going too far. You're actually really full right now. You actually are feeling full. Well, I can tell you right now, my off meal, and I'm going way back. My off meal used to be that I could go to Charlie Gito's on the hill and I could get mascacholi or some type of pasta, or I could make chocolate buttercream frosting and I would pour a whole bag of walnuts in it and I would eat it. That was my off meal for bodybuilding. Never could I stop.
Right.
I could eat the whole bowl.
And
someone would have to take it from me.
And you're small. I think that's the part to recognize is Debbie is not a large person. The joke about me being able to eat that much steak is that I'm big. I can consume a lot. So she's saying even at her size that she's going to consume that much of that type of food. And I'm just going to tell you the food community knows this. I mean, Pringles literally has it in their slogan. Once you pop the top, the fun don't stop. Well, of course it don't stop. Think of Leptin, okay? Of course it doesn't stop. I'm literally going to eat that entire can. But,
I'm gonna eat the can.
You're not going to...
the actual wrapper and everything
And something that's even interesting, I'll take that even a step further, is I always joke, why do they give you a Ziploc on the top of a bag of beef jerky? I don't know, because I'm going to eat the whole bag. But check this out. I have a friend that makes jerky. He's brought me beef and he's brought me deer, and he doesn't use all of the garbage that goes into these beef jerkies and deer jerkies that are on the shelf. And when I eat his jerky, it's delicious, but I'm out. I get a couple pieces in and I'm full. Why can I keep eating the stuff on the shelf? Because if you look at the ingredients and you look at the sugar content, you might as well actually be just drinking a soda. Right. I mean, it is no different. So I'm eating the same caliber and quantity of meat, and I can't stop because of the sugar that's on it.
Right.
And one of the things I will say is you have stretch receptors in your stomach. So imagine if you can eat a brownie that's 300 or 400 calories, processed and whatnot, has a lot of sugar in it, and then you have a large sweet potato, and maybe that has 200 calories, let's say. All right. So you can consume that sweet potato and even maybe 2 of those sweet potatoes and become full and not have the high calorie count, because your stomach is essentially, those receptors are stretching, they're causing you to feel full, versus the brownie. Hey, you might actually can eat 4 brownies.
Yes.
You eat 1, you eat 2, you eat 3, and so the carbohydrate density, the sugars, and that's what the food companies want you to do. They want you to eat 1 and they want you to eat 2 and 3 and 4, versus eating whole foods like that. I mean, your stomach can only take so much, and the stretch receptors then trigger your brain to say, hey, I'm full.
Okay, so this is the sort of the second part of why I personally have prayed over the years, and John is my husband, he can tell you wholeheartedly, I have prayed religiously and committed to believing that God would send a doctor that I could partner with and truly have a business to where they could come in and get medical care and my nutrition care at the same time.
It's been our plan the entire time.
6 months with the doctor, 6 months with me. I've always believed for that. But this is the other reason. The glucose monitoring is one of them, but the leptin sort of resistance is the other, because Dr. Joe, I have a bank of clients, let's just say 10%, okay, that I meet with, and they all need to lose 100 pounds or more, okay, and maybe they've lost 30 to 50 of the pounds, but it's legitimately taken them 6 to 8 months, and it just shouldn't have. They should have lost the 30 to 50 pounds completely, like in a 4-month, 3-month process, and I know for a fact they're doing what they are supposed to do. I am 100% certain of it. I don't question it for a minute. I need help with them. Is there something? Is there a medication? Is there a system in place that can down-regulate this leptin resistance a little bit, so that as they take in this good food, like it's like they're not so constantly overhung, like starving and craving, and how can they get it all into balance? I know that there's some new medications, like medical weight loss is sort of a buzz. You know, I would like for people to understand that that is a real thing, and it isn't just over-medicating someone. It is for people in this situation where they're struggling and they're trying and they can't get a result. You know, they're not just injecting you with something, they're injecting you with something that could potentially make it to where you are less insulin resistant right off the bat, and that your cravings downregulate. Could you speak on that just a little?
Yeah, so briefly about that, there's certain medications that have been developed for diabetics. These medications focus in on certain hormones that are in the gut, actually. So when you eat a meal, there's certain hormones that actually can inhibit it's called glucagon, and they can inhibit some of these pathways that can contribute to insulin resistance, and they can actually make you more insulin sensitive. So without going into too much medical terminology, after you eat, these two hormones, GIP, one of them, they actually work to actually reduce your insulin spike and your glucose spike, and it actually inhibits the liver from putting glucose in your bloodstream. So these are very, very, very interesting hormones that work based on what you're consuming, and that results in lower blood sugar numbers and reduced insulin spikes and reduced weight. So these drugs have been approved for diabetes. There's now one that's called Wegovy that's approved for medical weight loss, and it's one of those things that you can add an adjunct. Maybe you do have 100 pounds to lose, maybe you do have 50 pounds to lose, and maybe it's one of those things that you just need a little help to get you over the hump. These medications can really, really add to your mission of better health. And so I think with this, the continuous glucose monitoring and Debbie's support with her nutrition, you definitely can see a quicker result, as well as just, hey, maybe you just have those stubborn 50 pounds or 20 pounds that you need to shed. And at Integrity Health Systems, we really want to be that advocate. We also want to dive deeper, not just the weight, but your gut and your thyroid, and just unpeel the layers of the onion to say, at what point is there inflammation? Is there not enough omega-3s? Are you having a dysbiosis, an imbalance inside your gut that we need to fix? Do you have anything going on with your thyroid? So we want to take this 6-month comprehensive approach to healing you, not in one visit, not in two, but we definitely want to heal you, and it's our mission to get you to better health.
Well, I think it's recognizing if you've ever tried to lose weight or even just generally make yourself healthier and you've run into these walls, we want to find the wall with you and knock it down. So if you're someone that's trying to lose 100 pounds, you're like, I've tried this diet, I've tried this diet, I've tried this diet, I've tried this diet, and I promise you I'm giving you my 100%. And the people I've worked with have said, you're not doing what I tell you to do, and you know that you are, you're probably dealing with something like this. And this is the kind of thing that we're going to do with Integrity Health Systems. It's why we have Dr. Joe, so that we can delve into that medical side of your health and figure out, what are you dealing with? You're actually running into something here that you shouldn't. You're working your butt off. You're doing the cardio. You're doing the exercise. You're eating clean, and you don't feel right, and you're not losing the weight. We want to work with you to figure out why.
And it just isn't going to show up on a typical blood.
Right. And if you're somebody who is doing all of those things and you're working your butt off, you're doing everything I just said, but then once a day you're having your glass of red wine, or once a day you're having your cheat that you think you deserve, I want you to consider everything we just said. You may be actually setting yourself up to not not only have to work harder and not achieve the result, but potentially damaging and ruining your future.
Absolutely.
And me and Debbie, we want to walk through this journey with you. We want to hold your hand. This is not just about a doctor's appointment or a nutrition coach. This is much bigger than that. It's your health. And I truly believe that. I'm saying that from my heart. I really want to hold your hand through this and get you to success.
Yes.
And that's the whole point in what we do, is just to truly change your health. We love helping you to look better, but we really want you to feel better. For more information on Integrity Health Systems, please take a look at us at integritytrainingsystems.com or give us a call at 636-299-2208.
Welcome back, everybody. John and Debbie Morris in studio with Dr. Joe today. We're talking a lot about fructose, glucose, all sorts of things that are affecting people. We are obviously here to ensure that your overall health is put into a better position than it has ever been. On the break, we were talking a little bit about some things, issues with when people come and they look to become healthier. A lot of times the reason they're doing it is they're looking for the magical anti-aging pill. They're looking for a way to make themselves be healthier as they get past a red alert or something that's kind of flagged them. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about the process you were just mentioning while we're on break, Dr. Joe?
Yeah, so there's a process called glycation. So I'm sure that if you have a family or a friend or whatnot that has lived with type 2 diabetes, they always talk about a hemoglobin A1C. Like, what's your A1C? And so A1C is essentially a 90-day picture on how much glucose is attached to your red blood cell. And that process is called glycation. Glycation is where you have sugar molecules that are circulating throughout the body, and then they interact with a protein or a fat called a lipid. And that causes that there's a bond between the sugar molecule and your protein or fat molecule. And the reason that's an issue, because anytime you get these sugars that bond to things, it can cause damage, and the damage is not reversible. And one of the issues that we see is even in your skin. So patients that are diabetics or patients that have metabolic disease, metabolic syndrome, we're seeing that even their skin is affected. So when you have a sugar molecule that's circulating around and you have that over time, it builds up and it damages the collagen in your skin and actually can lead to sagging in your skin and wrinkles. And then actually, having high blood sugars can lead to cataracts in your eye. That's a form of glycation. And then glycation having these high levels of sugar in your body leads to chronic inflammation, because you have these sugar molecules that are bouncing around your body. Your body's made up of protein, bone. It's made up of, all these different organs, and a lot of those basic elements are lipids. They're proteins, and there's muscle fibers in there. And so imagine you have these molecules of the glucose and fructose that are just bouncing around and then bumping into your DNA, bumping into your different cells, and it's essentially glycating them. And it's tagging them with this sugar molecule, and it essentially is aging the cell, and it's aging you, and then that leads to chronic inflammation. And one of the things that we look at, heart disease, that's an inflammatory process. Stroke, you have inflammation of the blood vessels that essentially narrow over time and cause a stroke. You have fatty liver disease and diabetes. These are all inflammatory diseases due to elevated blood sugars, and 3 out of 5 people worldwide will die of an inflammatory disease. So all the patients that I see at the hospital, it always rooted back to an inflammatory disease, obesity. And so having these elevated blood sugars all the time, and even part-time, it's one of those things that you have to think, whoa, I'm actually aging myself from the inside out.
Right.
So,
and I think what's important about that too is I've seen people that have done that and they look amazing. I've seen people that are doing exactly what you just said. I had a friend of mine who actually dealt with ulcerated colitis, and he was jacked. I mean, he literally looked like he was chiseled out of marble. The guy was solid, but he ate donuts at the front desk of a gym. And you're like, okay. But he got away with it. And people just saw him and assumed, oh, okay. And then you would have the other side of that. It's like, well, it must be nice. Not really. The guy is in constant pain. He just doesn't talk about it. The guy's constantly sick. He just doesn't talk about it. This stuff eats you alive from the inside, and eventually it's going to come out. And so that's why we start with that. We start start at the root of that. And part of what the program of Integrity Health Systems is with Dr. Joe is blood glucose monitoring. We're kind of looking, and it's kind of neat because we're using Debbie and I as quote unquote guinea pigs, if you will. We've got the monitors on right now, and I'm just looking forward to spiking it on purpose to see what it does, to be honest with you. I did it last night with a gluten-free pizza. Domino's, it's interesting, since I've become healthy, the things that you realize poison in moderation is still poison, the things you realize you can't deal with. And a lot of pizzas I can't deal with. The combination of the carbohydrates with the sauces and the sugars in combination with dairy, it jacks me up. But for whatever reason, Domino's gluten-free, I can eat and not feel sick. I do deal with some lethargy the next day, but that's the side effect that I'm willing to take on so that I can have something that's off of my meal plan. Anyway, I used that last night as a test, and the spike was remarkable. I've been running at about early morning. My fasted number is in like the high 70s, and then once I'm up and moving around, I'm in the low 80s, and then my average for the day is like high 80s, almost 90. Well, the spike from the Domino's gluten-free pizza was 154. So I went up by double of what my fasted was, by almost 50% of what my resting, regular, eating normal food was. And then the plummet afterwards was right back, actually lower than my normal of 90. I dropped below that back to almost the high 70s. Mm-hmm. And then I did the same thing, not as big of a spike, with chocolate almond milk. So, chocolate almond milk, yeah, it's still chocolate, but like you have people that'll try to say, well, that's healthier than like a Hershey's chocolate mixed whole milk or 2%, right? Well, I mean, it depends on what you're defining as healthier. I had a similar spike and a similar crash. And so I'm going to post this stuff online. I'll post my 24-hour window so you can see, but Debbie has been preaching this. It's why we're so thankful we did. We prayed to God for Dr. Joe for a while, and that's why we're so thankful to have this as a possibility, because Debbie preaches all day long. If you are spiking and crashing these blood sugar numbers, even if they're falling within the quote-unquote normal range, you don't want to do that. All of the effects of the show that Dr. Joe has mentioned are going to be occurring in your body, and I'm literally going to post for you how with 2 different intakes of food, I spiked and crashed my blood sugar.
It's the right up and the right down. It's the way up, what are you feeling? It's the way down, what are you feeling? What are you medicating yourself for that you're literally medicating yourself for the reaction on the way up, and then a different medication for the reaction on the way down.
You're looking for a high.
Yep.
I mean, that's what you're doing.
And unfortunately, we don't need either of those medications, because in most cases, if we just level out and we don't have those spikes, which is basically where I was, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I eat the same food every single day, and I really haven't had any spikes. I told Dr. Joe, I said, I just kind of hover in this little space right here. Is that normal? Yeah. Right? And can you talk a little bit about metabolic flexibility?
Yeah, so metabolic flexibility is what we really want to try to achieve. So, let's first per se, you're constantly requiring a meal every 2 hours. You're having cravings. You're getting your Starbucks in the morning, and then you're wanting something, by 10 o'clock, and then you want something by noon, and then you want something by 2, every 2 hours. And so your body's relying on carbs, it's relying on glucose, it's relying on that. And what happens is, we talked of that builds up insulin resistance, but metabolic flexibility is where, like Debbie's graph on her glucose monitor, it's very stable. And so your body then says, well, wait a minute, I'm not having to require these high amounts of insulin because you're eating all this glucose and sugar and whatnot. So instead, I'm going to switch over and I'm going to burn some fat. And that fat is then broken down into fatty acids. And then your brain and your other parts of your body can use fat as energy. And so I like to just have it as describe it as like a dial. Once you dial in your blood glucose and you have these smooth rolling hills, not these tall peaked mountains, then your body is able to take a step back. It turns off that insulin switch, and it actually is able to burn fat easier. And throughout the day, you're able to burn the fat, then switch when you eat some vegetables or even some simple carbohydrates. You're able to then switch to that and then switch back afterwards, and you're not needing to eat every 2 hours, maybe every 5 hours. And I've noticed that being a doctor, I've been stressed and seeing patients and then over the last year, I've actually taken a really big step to, I want to be healthier. So I've hooked myself with a glucose monitor, and then I've actually taken like the day one of having all these spikes, and then taking it to where I'm altering my diet to make those smooth rolling hills, and I am not craving food. I mean, I could go 7-8 hours without craving, and it's definitely there's definitely a neurological component to these cravings, and it's remarkable. After you get off that roller coaster ride of those glucose spikes, you don't really need food as much.
I think what's important to acknowledge here, what we're really trying to get across to you, is you really have to pay attention to your overall health. And this stuff that you're bringing in, you don't realize that you're trying to medicate yourself. Don't do it alone. Let us help you. Let Debbie's nutrition program help you. Let Dr. Joe's portion of this glucose monitoring, all of the things he offers, helps you. Stop trying to medicate yourself and let us hold your hand and get you to where you actually feel good enough and handle stress well enough and have the energy to get through your day. You don't seek that stuff out.
Absolutely. For more information on a 6-month nutrition program with myself, and including a 6-month medical program with Dr. Joe, or to come in and visit us for a continuous glucose monitor and a visit with myself and a visit with Dr. Joe, you can call us at 636-299-2208 or take a look at us at integritytrainingsystems.com. Thank you for listening, and God bless.
See you.
Hi, my name is Debbie. I'm a mom, nutrition coach, and my husband and I own a gym. I'm also a baker. I bake healthy cookies, brownies, and muffins that are high in protein and low in sugar. And yes, they are gluten-free and dairy-free. Our daughter Sophie is our greatest inspiration, so we decided to name all of our baked goods after her. The idea for Sophie's cookies, brownies, and muffins came out of a real need to provide our daughter with a healthy snack. These healthy snacks make her more alert, balanced, and overall more joyful. We know that our baked goods are a better way to snack, and we want everyone to experience it. If you like snacking, then you will love our baked goods. Sophie's cookies, brownies, and muffins are for all ages. We don't want anyone to miss out on the benefits of our delicious and nutritious snacks. These are going fast. Order your very own Sophie's cookies, muffins, and brownies today.